Ronald Reagan's moment of massive historical irony, how armed black men led to gun control. When armed Black Panthers showed up at the California state capitol in 1967, they probably saved thousands of lives. By THOM HARTMANN, published on June 8th, 2022 at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I've mentioned this story on my channel before when I spoke about abolishing the Second Amendment and how racism in America has created the sort of gun culture and gun laws that permeate the country and allow for these mass shootings to happen, not only in our schools and churches and supermarkets, but also in the inner city, as the white supremacists like to say. So I'm going to read this article because this is an important story. It teaches a lot of lessons about how America works, how America views guns, and who America really values as citizens. So in this picture, two members of the Black Panther Party are met on the steps of the state capitol in Sacramento, May 2nd, 1967, by a police lieutenant. All right. So, on May 2nd, 1967, the destinies of Huey Newton, Bobby Seale, and Ronald Reagan collided. The day saved untold thousands of lives. At the time, California was an open carry state with few gun restrictions. Governor Reagan was on the steps of the state capitol to meet and share lunch with a group of visiting eighth graders when Newton, Seale, and nearly 30 other Black Panthers pulled up out front in a small caravan of cars. Armed with everything from pistols to 12-gauge shotguns, they climbed the half-dozen steps to the area around the front doors of the building. Seale pulled out a prepared statement and read it to the students and people in front of the Capitol. Black people have begged, prayed, petitioned, demonstrated, and everything else to get to the racist power structure of America to right the wrongs which have historically been perpetuated against Black people. The time has come for Black people to arm themselves against this terror before it is too late. Them boys have big nuts. Big nuts. They then walked into the building to confront the state's police and legislators, fully loaded guns and rifles in their hands. Reagan was aghast, and nearly all white California legislature panicked. Niggers with guns. What I would have paid to hear those lily white people start screaming and hollering, ah! Oh, God. Anyway. There's no reason why on the street today a citizen should be carrying loaded weapons, Reagan said later that afternoon. That's funny. Within a few weeks, Republican Assemblyman Don Mulford, with bipartisan support, introduced into the California Assembly a law, AB 1591, to ban people in California from carrying loaded weapons in public. It was enthusiastically signed into law by Reagan on July 28th, fewer than 3 months after Seale's proclamation at the Capitol. Over the following years, California built on that initial gun control law after a 1989 school shooting in Stockton when a young white man wielding a semi-automatic weapon murdered 5 children and a teacher while injuring over 30 others. California passed a ban on assault weapons that stands to this day. The state went on to ban private gun sales, closing the notorious gun show loophole that pours weapons into other states. California requires all gun dealers to be registered and licensed by the state, mandates background checks, and even outlawed the manufacture and sale of cheap Saturday night special handguns in the state. When California put its own version of red flag laws into place, laws forbidding people flagged at risk for committing gun crimes or mass murders from purchasing guns, the state followed up. It's one of the few in the country with an agency that studies gun violence and found them to be nearly 100% effective because of how difficult the state makes it to obtain a weapon. While in Texas, a violent criminal on the federal no-fly terrorist watch list is welcome to buy a dozen assault weapons from the back of a car and go shoot up a school. In California, they can't buy a gun if you've been convicted of any violent crime whatsoever, even a misdemeanor like a bar fight. As a result, according to New York Times correspondent Sean Hubler, by 2019, the last year for which we have statistics, California's gun deaths were around 7 per 100,000 people, one of the lowest rates in the country. So So there was a huge differential by 2019. Hubler told Sabrina Tavernise on the Times podcast, The Daily, the chances of dying from gun violence in California were about 70% lower than they were in the rest of the country. California still has more gun deaths than any state in the nation except Texas, as the NRA will quickly point out. But what they won't highlight is that California, with 40 million people, about the same as Florida and New York combined, has the largest population of any state in America. It's bigger than 198 of the world's 235 nations. So, but compare California's rate of 7 gun deaths per 100,000 to states with virtually no gun control like Mississippi, 28.6, Louisiana, where I'm from, 26.3, Wyoming, 25.9. There's like 4 people in Wyoming. Those what the hell? Anyway, Missouri with 23.9, or Alabama, where I was born, 23.6. I'm lucky I'm alive, honestly. And the effectiveness of these prohibitions becomes obvious. If you live in Texas, floating around the national average at 14.2 gun deaths per 100,000, you're far more likely to die from a bullet than in states with strong gun control laws like Hawaii 3.4, Massachusetts 3.7, New Jersey 5, Rhode Island 5.1, New York 5.3, or Connecticut 6. When your gun nut brother-in-law starts babbling about gun deaths in Chicago, why do the Second Amendment people obsess over Chicago like that proves a point? They just like to say the word Chicago like that means something. It doesn't mean shit. They don't even care about the people in Chicago. Honestly, I'm so done. I'm so done with these people. Anyway, Illinois, with reasonable gun control laws, is 14.1 gun deaths per 100,000 people. Yeah, anytime somebody says Chicago, I'm just going to say, what is it? Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama. Yeah, what about... Anyway, you may want to point out that nearly 60% of guns seized in Chicago came out of state, with most coming from next door Indiana, 17.3 guns per 100,000, where gun stores dot the Indiana side of the state line. Wow. National gun control would put a quick end to that. In 1932, New State Ice versus Liebman decision, Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis famously called the states laboratories of democracy. It is one of the happy incidents of the federal system that a single courageous state may, if its citizens choose, serve as a laboratory and try novel social and economic experiments without risk to the rest of the country. He could have been speaking of California, Hawaii, or Connecticut. Gun control works, and we have the proof right here in the United States. While Reagan's racism produced the first significant gun control in America's largest state, today white supremacy is the largest force fighting against gun control. I'm telling you, white supremacists have a death cult, because even when their guy, Reagan, did the right thing, for the wrong reasons. He got rid of the guns, not only because of a school shooting in Stockton, but because he saw a bunch of Negroes with arms. The white supremacists nowadays don't want to learn from the past. They never learn from the past. The white supremacists, the gun nuts, the Second Amendment people, who are all seemingly tied together. I made a video about the statistics of gun owners, who they are, where they're from. A lot of them are old white men. Yeah. Anyway, what was I going to say? Yeah, the white supremacists want a death cult. The Second Amendment people want a death cult. They don't actually love America. They don't love Americans. They just want to see the world burn. They want people to die. They don't care about what's actually sane and what makes sense. They just don't care. Ironically, while it was Reagan's racism that first produced significant gun control in America's largest state, today white supremacy in America is the single largest force fighting against gun control. With very few exceptions, the entire Second Amendment movement is made up of white people, many of them associated with white nationalist militias and politicians from former Confederate states. Yes, the majority of the Second Amendment nuts are white people. Like, that's statistically proven. And like, also, some people are going to bring up like Colin Noir and all the other black puppets that the that the right brings out to talk for them. Like, guys, you can only pull out Candace Owens and Thomas Sowell and Colin Noir and these COONs so much. Like, these guys don't matter. Anyway, the NRA is greatly diminished both in power and budget, but racism continues to drive the gun control debate, this time in the opposite direction from the days Reagan was governor of California. Today we see a knee-jerk fear of non-white people in the ongoing explosion of gun purchases in rural and suburban white communities across the country. When America elected our first black president in 2008, gun stores across America were so overwhelmed by white people buying guns that it was referred to as a frenzy and the great gun and ammunition shortage. Wow. Scratch the surface of the most fervent gun rights members of Congress, and you'll find unrepentant white supremacist Republican politicians who reflexively villainize the Black Lives Matter movement and hype the Antifa straw man at every opportunity. On the gun control side, now that the Panthers are mostly just a memory of the national stage, fear of armed black people has been replaced by fear of white children being slaughtered in public schools. That's providing us with a shocking glimpse into the minds of these Republican legislators. White freakout about black people having weapons back in the 1960s was a stronger motivator for them than today's slaughter of innocent children of all races, at least so far. So, black men in America, we know what we have to do to save America once again, because we always save America. We love America even though it doesn't love us. We all have to get a gun, and we all have to march on Washington. We need to have Farrakhan lead the march. I know the Nation of Islam doesn't like men carrying weapons, but we need a million black men holding all the AR-15s and assault weapons we can get our hands on and march on the Capitol of the United States so that way they can finally abolish the Second Amendment. That's the only way to save America, guys. Every black man in America should get a gun. I now officially renounce anything I've ever said about getting guns. We all need guns. Now, that was a joke. That's obviously a joke. But hopefully we can get rid of the Second Amendment. Thank you for watching. My name is Simon Hill. Peace.